The crowd fell silent as the referee's voice echoed across the shooting range. Malfunction detected. Rifle confiscated. Sarah Chen stood frozen, watching her custom-built precision rifle being carried away just moments before the most important competition of her life. The World Combat Shooting Championship had drawn the best marksmen from 37 countries, and she had trained for 3 years for this single moment. Her competitors smirked, thinking her chance was over. The backup rifle they handed her was standard military issue, heavier, less precise, with a scope she had never calibrated. Most shooters would have withdrawn. But Sarah had learned to adapt in ways that would soon shock everyone watching. What happened next in those 83 seconds would be talked about in shooting circles for decades to come. Because sometimes, when everything goes wrong, that's exactly when someone discovers what they're truly capable of. Sarah Chen never imagined she would become one of the world's most feared competitive shooters. Growing up in a small farming town in Montana, she was the quiet girl who helped her father fix tractors and spent her evenings reading engineering textbooks. Her introduction to firearms came not from military service or hunting traditions, but from a practical need that would shape her entire future. When Sarah was 15, coyotes had been attacking her family's livestock with increasing frequency. The local ranch hands were struggling to protect the animals, and the financial losses were mounting. Her father, David Chen, had immigrated from Taiwan with dreams of running a successful cattle ranch, but he lacked the shooting skills necessary to deal with the predator problem. Traditional hunters they hired were expensive and not always available when attacks occurred. One evening, after losing 3 more calves to a particularly bold pack of coyotes, Sarah made a decision that surprised everyone. She approached her father and asked if she could learn to use the ranch's old hunting rifle. David was initially hesitant, but Sarah's logical argument was hard to ignore. She pointed out that she was often the first to spot the coyotes during her evening chores, and she was already familiar with the patterns of their attacks. The first shooting lessons took place in the early morning hours before school. Sarah's natural aptitude was immediately apparent, but it was her analytical approach that set her apart. While most beginners focused on simply hitting the target, Sarah studied the mechanics of each shot. She kept detailed notebooks recording wind conditions, bullet trajectories, and the subtle variations in her breathing that affected accuracy. Her engineering mindset transformed shooting from an instinctive skill into a precise science. Within 6 months, Sarah had not only eliminated the coyote problem but had developed an almost supernatural ability to predict and compensate for environmental factors that affected long-range shooting. Local farmers began requesting her help with their own predator issues. Word of the teenager who could consistently hit targets at distances that challenged experienced hunters began to spread throughout the county. Her reputation caught the attention of Marcus Rodriguez, a retired Marine sniper who had moved to Montana to escape the noise and crowds of urban life. Marcus had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and held several military marksmanship records. When he heard about Sarah's abilities, his first instinct was skepticism. Too many young shooters had been overhyped by proud parents and impressed neighbors. But curiosity eventually got the better of him. The meeting between Sarah and Marcus took place on a crisp October morning at the Chun family ranch. Marcus had brought his own precision rifle and set up targets at various distances, including some that most recreational shooters would consider impossible. He expected to politely observe a talented amateur and perhaps offer some basic guidance. What he witnessed instead changed his perspective on natural talent. Sarah's consistency was remarkable, but more impressive was her ability to adapt her technique based on changing conditions. When wind patterns shifted, she adjusted not just her aim but her entire shooting position. When morning dew affected visibility, she modified her breathing rhythm to account for the longer target acquisition time. Most remarkably, she could explain the reasoning behind every adjustment she made. Marcus realized he was watching someone who understood shooting at a level that typically took decades to develop. Her lack of formal training had actually been an advantage, allowing her to develop techniques without being constrained by conventional wisdom. She had essentially reinvented precision shooting from first principles, guided only by physics and obsessive attention to detail. The conversation after the demonstration lasted 4 hours. Marcus learned that Sarah had been teaching herself ballistics theory using college textbooks borrowed from the local library. She had constructed her own chronograph to measure bullet velocity and had even begun making minor modifications to her ammunition to optimize performance. Her approach was more suited to a research laboratory than a farm, but the results spoke for themselves. Marcus made an offer that would transform Sarah's life. He proposed to coach her in competitive shooting, starting with local matches and potentially advancing to national competitions. He explained that her skills were already far beyond what most competitors achieved after years of training, but she needed exposure to different shooting disciplines and competitive pressure to reach her full potential. Sarah's parents were initially concerned about their daughter's growing involvement with firearms, but they recognized that her passion had given her a sense of purpose and confidence that had been missing before. Her grades had actually improved as she learned to apply the same methodical approach to her academic studies. When Marcus explained the scholarship opportunities available to top collegiate shooters, and the potential career paths in engineering firms that valued her unique combination of technical skills and precision, they gave their blessing. The transition from ranch problem solver to competitive shooter began with small local matches in neighboring towns. Sarah's first competition was a weekend event that attracted about 30 participants, mostly older men who had been shooting competitively for years. Her appearance at the registration table caused some raised eyebrows, but experienced competitors had learned not to underestimate newcomers based on appearances alone. The format was straightforward: precision rifle shooting at targets ranging from 100 to 600 yards, with points awarded based on accuracy and consistency across multiple rounds. Sarah's equipment was basic compared to the custom rifles and expensive optics used by serious competitors, but Marcus had taught her to focus on fundamentals rather than gear. Her performance that first day established a pattern that would become familiar in the months ahead. Sarah started conservatively, taking time to understand the specific conditions and requirements of competitive shooting. By the middle rounds, she had adapted to the new environment and begun demonstrating the consistency that had impressed Marcus. By the final rounds, she was shooting groups that surprised even the most experienced competitors. The victory itself was less important than the reaction it generated. Several competitors approached Sarah after the match, eager to understand her techniques and background. Word began to spread through regional shooting circles about the teenager from Montana who combined textbook precision with an almost scientific approach to the sport. More importantly for Sarah's future development, she discovered that she genuinely enjoyed the competitive aspect of shooting. The mental challenge of performing under pressure, the camaraderie among serious competitors, and the constant opportunity to refine her techniques appealed to her engineering mindset. She had found a pursuit that combined her natural abilities with her intellectual curiosity. Over the following months, Sarah's competitive schedule expanded to include matches across the northwestern United States. Each competition taught her something new about shooting under different conditions and exposed her to techniques developed by competitors from various backgrounds. Her notebook collection grew to include detailed analyses of different shooting positions, ammunition types, and equipment configurations. The progression from regional to national level competition happened faster than anyone expected. Within 18 months of her first match, Sarah was consistently placing in the top 3 at major regional championships. Her scores were attracting attention from collegiate shooting programs and equipment sponsors. More significantly, her analytical approach was beginning to influence how other competitors thought about precision shooting. Marcus recognized that Sarah had outgrown what he could teach her. While his military experience had provided an excellent foundation, competitive shooting at the highest levels required specialized knowledge and training resources that he couldn't provide. After consulting with contacts in the competitive shooting community, he arranged for Sarah to train with Elena Volkov, a former Olympic competitor who had transitioned to coaching after representing Russia in 3 Olympic Games. The move to train with Elena required Sarah to spend summers at a specialized facility in Colorado, where she would be exposed to international-level competition and training methods. The decision was difficult for the Chun family, both financially and emotionally, but they recognized that Sarah had an opportunity that might never come again. The training facility in Colorado was unlike anything Sarah had experienced. The equipment was state-of-the-art, the other athletes were already competing internationally, and the intensity of training was far beyond what she had encountered at regional matches. For the first time since beginning competitive shooting, Sarah felt genuinely challenged and occasionally overwhelmed. Elena's coaching style was demanding but methodical. She immediately identified areas where Sarah's self-taught techniques, while effective, were not optimized for the highest levels of competition. More importantly, she began preparing Sarah for the mental pressures of international competition, where small mistakes could mean the difference between medals and disappointment. The transformation was gradual but unmistakable. Sarah's scores improved incrementally as she incorporated Elena's refinements into her technique. More significantly, she developed the mental resilience necessary to perform consistently under the intense pressure of major competitions. By the end of her first summer in Colorado, she was shooting scores that would have been competitive at national-level events. Sarah's breakthrough performance came at the National Junior Championships during her senior year of high school. Competing against the best young shooters in the country, many of whom had been training in elite programs for years, she not only won her division but set 2 junior records that had stood for over a decade. The victory earned her a full scholarship to a major university with one of the country's top shooting programs and caught the attention of the national team selection committee. The path from struggling ranch teenager to national-level competitor had taken just 3 years, but Sarah had packed a lifetime of learning and development into that period. Her success was built on natural talent, but it was sustained by an approach to continuous improvement that set her apart from even gifted competitors. She had not just learned to shoot precisely, she had learned to think about shooting in ways that consistently produced superior results. Sarah's university years brought challenges she had never anticipated. While her shooting skills had earned her recognition and a scholarship, adapting to collegiate competition revealed gaps in her experience that went beyond technical ability. The university team environment was intensely competitive, with athletes who had been groomed for excellence from childhood and possessed the kind of institutional knowledge that only came from years in elite programs. Her teammates were polite but distant during her first semester. Many came from families with deep connections to competitive shooting, and they had grown up attending national championships as spectators before becoming participants. Sarah's rural background and unconventional path to elite competition made her an outsider in a community that valued tradition and established networks. She found herself studying not just shooting techniques but the unwritten social codes that governed interactions within the sport. The academic workload was equally demanding. Sarah had enrolled in mechanical engineering, drawn by the same analytical mindset that had made her successful in shooting. The coursework required skills in mathematics and physics that complemented her practical understanding of ballistics, but the pace was relentless. She often found herself in the library until midnight, then waking before dawn for shooting practice, sustained by determination and an ever-present awareness that her scholarship depended on maintaining both academic and athletic performance. Her first collegiate shooting season was a humbling experience. While Sarah's raw scores were competitive with anyone on the team, she struggled with the mental aspects of representing the university in high-pressure situations. The crowds were larger, the media attention was constant, and the consequences of poor performance affected not just her individual standings but the team's national ranking. For the first time since beginning competitive shooting, Sarah experienced the paralysis that could come from overthinking her technique. The low point came during the conference championships at the end of her freshman year. Sarah had been selected for the varsity team based on her practice scores, but the pressure of competing in front of university officials, alumni, and scouts from national teams proved overwhelming. Her performance was technically sound but lacked the aggressive precision that had characterized her shooting in previous competitions. The team finished third, missing qualification for the national championships by a margin small enough that Sarah's subpar performance was clearly a contributing factor. The aftermath was difficult but ultimately transformative. Elena, who had continued to work with Sarah during university breaks, helped her understand that technical skill without mental preparation was insufficient at the highest levels of competition. She arranged for Sarah to work with a sports psychologist who specialized in precision sports, beginning a process of mental training that would prove as important as her physical preparation. The sports psychologist, Dr. Patricia Williams, had worked with Olympic athletes across multiple disciplines. Her approach focused not on eliminating pressure but on channeling it into enhanced performance. Through a series of exercises and visualization techniques, Sarah learned to transform competitive anxiety into heightened focus. More importantly, she developed strategies for maintaining her analytical approach even when external pressures threatened to disrupt her normal thought processes. The mental training coincided with significant improvements in Sarah's equipment and support system. Her increasing prominence in collegiate shooting had attracted attention from equipment manufacturers, leading to sponsorship deals that provided access to cutting-edge rifles and optics. For the first time, her equipment matched her skill level, eliminating variables that had previously required compensation through technique. More importantly, Sarah's academic studies were beginning to inform her shooting in sophisticated ways. Her engineering coursework had introduced her to advanced concepts in materials science, aerodynamics, and precision manufacturing that allowed her to understand ballistics at a level far beyond most competitors. She began collaborating with professors on research projects related to projectile physics, gaining insights that she could apply directly to her competitive performance. Sarah's sophomore season marked the beginning of her emergence as a national-level competitor. Her mental preparation had eliminated the inconsistency that had plagued her freshman year, while her technical improvements had pushed her scores into ranges that were competitive with the best collegiate shooters in the country. More importantly, she had developed a reputation as someone who performed better under pressure, often shooting her best scores in the most important competitions. The breakthrough performance came at the National Collegiate Championships, where Sarah was competing in her first major national event. The format was challenging, requiring competitors to excel in multiple shooting disciplines over 3 days of competition. Sarah's versatility, developed through her unconventional background and broad training, proved to be a significant advantage over specialists who excelled in single disciplines. Her performance on the first day was solid but unremarkable, placing her in the middle of a field that included several returning All-Americans. The second day's precision rifle event was where Sarah began to distinguish herself. The conditions were difficult, with variable winds and changing light conditions that challenged even experienced competitors. Sarah's ability to adapt her technique based on environmental analysis allowed her to maintain consistency while other shooters struggled with the changing conditions. The final day's competition included a rapid-fire precision event that was designed to test both accuracy and speed under pressure. This format played directly to Sarah's strengths, combining the technical precision she had developed through years of practice with the quick adaptation skills she had learned while dealing with predators on the family ranch. Her performance was dominant, posting scores that were significantly higher than any other competitor. The victory was significant not just for Sarah personally but for her university's program. It was the first individual national championship in the school's history and elevated the program's national profile considerably. More importantly for Sarah's future, the performance caught the attention of national team scouts who were evaluating potential candidates for international competition. The invitation to try out for the national team arrived 3 weeks after the collegiate championships. Sarah was one of 12 competitors invited to a week-long evaluation camp that would determine the roster for upcoming international competitions, including the World Championships. The opportunity represented everything Sarah had been working toward, but it also introduced pressures and expectations unlike anything she had previously experienced. The national team training facility was located at the Olympic Training Center, where Sarah found herself surrounded by athletes from multiple sports who were all pursuing similar dreams of international competition. The shooting candidates included several Olympic veterans, multiple World Championship medalists, and competitors who had been part of national team programs for years. Sarah was not only the youngest candidate but also the least experienced in international competition. The evaluation process was comprehensive, testing not just shooting performance but physical conditioning, mental preparation, and ability to handle media attention. Sarah's academic background proved surprisingly relevant, as team officials were impressed by her analytical approach to performance optimization and her ability to articulate technical concepts clearly during interviews. Her shooting performance during the evaluation camp was consistently excellent, but it was her adaptability that most impressed the coaching staff. When equipment malfunctions were deliberately introduced to test how candidates handled unexpected problems, Sarah's response was calm and methodical. Her experience with improvised solutions during her early ranch shooting days had taught her to adapt quickly without losing focus. The psychological evaluation revealed the mental toughness that Elena and Dr. Williams had helped Sarah develop. While some candidates struggled with the pressure of constant observation and evaluation, Sarah seemed to thrive on the challenge. Her scores actually improved as the week progressed and the pressure mounted, suggesting that she possessed the rare ability to elevate her performance when it mattered most. The announcement of team selection was made on the final day of camp, with candidates called individually to receive their results. Sarah was among the last to be called, which she later learned was because team officials had been debating whether someone with limited international experience should be included on a team competing at the World Championships. Her consistent performance throughout the evaluation had ultimately convinced them that her potential outweighed her lack of experience. Making the national team brought recognition and opportunities that Sarah had never imagined. Equipment sponsors competed to provide her with the latest technology, training camps exposed her to international coaching methods, and media attention brought her story to a much broader audience. More importantly, she began training alongside competitors who had achieved the highest levels of success in the sport. The preparation for her first World Championships was intense and comprehensive. In addition to shooting practice, Sarah participated in specialized training camps that covered everything from international competition protocols to cultural sensitivity for competing in foreign countries. She learned about drug testing procedures, media management, and the diplomatic aspects of representing her country in international competition. Her first international competition was a smaller event held in Germany, designed to give newer team members experience with international travel and competition formats before the World Championships. Sarah's performance exceeded expectations, finishing in the top 10 in her primary event and demonstrating that her skills translated effectively to international competition. The experience of competing internationally was both exhilarating and educational. Sarah discovered that shooting techniques varied significantly between countries, with competitors bringing approaches she had never encountered. More importantly, she learned to adapt to different equipment standards, range conditions, and competitive protocols that varied from event to event. Her success in Germany earned her a spot on the World Championship team, where she would be competing against the best shooters from around the globe. The World Championships represented the pinnacle of competitive shooting outside of the Olympic Games, attracting media attention and spectator interest that dwarfed anything Sarah had previously experienced. The months leading up to the World Championships were the most intense training period of Sarah's life. Her daily routine included hours of shooting practice, physical conditioning, mental preparation sessions, and academic coursework that she was determined not to neglect. The pressure was constant, with team officials, sponsors, and media representatives all interested in her preparation and expectations. Elena's role became even more crucial during this period, as she helped Sarah maintain focus on her personal goals rather than becoming overwhelmed by external expectations. They developed specific strategies for handling media attention, managing pre-competition nerves, and maintaining the analytical approach that had been the foundation of Sarah's success. The final preparation phase included a training camp where Sarah worked intensively with the equipment she would use in international competition. This was when she first encountered the custom precision rifle that would become central to her competitive identity. The rifle had been specifically built for her by a master gunsmith, incorporating modifications based on her input and designed to optimize her particular shooting style. Sarah's relationship with her equipment was more intimate and technical than most competitors. She understood not just how to use her rifle effectively but how it was constructed and why specific modifications enhanced her performance. This deep understanding would prove crucial when equipment problems threatened to derail her most important competition. The World Championships were held in Prague, Czech Republic, a city with a rich tradition in precision shooting and some of the most challenging range conditions in international competition. Sarah arrived 2 weeks before her events began, part of the standard acclimatization period that allowed competitors to adapt to local conditions and finalize their equipment preparations. The historic shooting facility, dating back to the early 20th century, presented unique challenges that tested even the most experienced international competitors. The first challenge was the facility itself. Unlike modern ranges with controlled environments, the Prague venue was subject to complex wind patterns created by surrounding buildings and the natural topography of the area. The winds could shift dramatically even during individual shooting strings, requiring constant adaptation and an almost intuitive understanding of ballistics. Sarah spent her first week carefully studying these patterns, filling notebook after notebook with observations about how different weather conditions affected bullet trajectories at various times of day. Her systematic approach to understanding the venue caught the attention of other international competitors, many of whom relied more on experience and instinct than detailed analysis. Sarah's engineering background allowed her to treat the range like a complex system with predictable patterns, even when those patterns were more subtle than what most shooters could detect. She began to identify correlations between temperature variations, humidity changes, and wind shifts that other competitors missed entirely. The international shooting community was relatively small, and word of Sarah's unusual preparation methods spread quickly through the competitor housing. She found herself fielding questions from shooters representing countries around the world, many of whom were curious about her analytical approach. These informal conversations became the foundation for friendships that would span her entire competitive career, but they also meant that her methods were being observed and potentially copied by direct competitors. Among the competitors Sarah met during this preparation period was Yuki Tanaka, a Japanese shooter who held the current world record in Sarah's primary event. Yuki had been competing internationally for over a decade and had won medals at 3 world championships. Her approach to shooting was almost entirely intuitive, developed through thousands of hours of practice and an almost supernatural ability to read range conditions. The contrast between Yuki's instinctive style and Sarah's analytical method represented two completely different philosophies of precision shooting. Their first meeting occurred during a practice session when Sarah was testing different ammunition loads to optimize performance under Prague's specific conditions. Yuki observed Sarah's methodical testing process and was intrigued by the level of detail involved. Most competitors arrived with ammunition that had proven effective in their home countries and made minor adjustments based on local conditions. Sarah was essentially conducting a complete ballistics analysis from scratch, treating Prague as a unique environment requiring specialized solutions. The conversation that followed revealed the depth of Yuki's experience and the sophistication of Sarah's technical knowledge. Yuki shared insights about Prague's wind patterns that she had gained through years of competing at the venue, while Sarah explained the physics behind some of the phenomena that Yuki had learned to anticipate through experience. Both shooters came away from the interaction with new perspectives on their approach to competitive shooting. Sarah's preparation routine was noticed not just by other competitors but by international media covering the championships. Her story of rising from ranch defender to world championship competitor in just a few years had captured attention, but her scientific approach to shooting preparation provided compelling material for feature articles. Camera crews followed her through equipment checks, practice sessions, and even her detailed weather monitoring activities. The media attention was simultaneously flattering and distracting. Sarah had learned to handle interviews and public attention during her collegiate career, but the international spotlight was far more intense. Every aspect of her preparation was scrutinized, from her equipment choices to her pre-competition routines. She found herself being portrayed as representing a new generation of shooters who combine traditional skills with modern analytical methods. Elena worked closely with Sarah during this period to maintain focus on competition preparation while managing the external pressures. They established clear boundaries around media access and developed strategies for using the attention positively rather than allowing it to become a distraction. Sarah learned to view interviews and photo sessions as part of her competitive preparation, requiring the same mental discipline as her shooting practice. The weapon inspection and qualification process began 1 week before competition started. This was when Sarah's custom rifle underwent its final technical inspection to ensure compliance with international regulations. The inspection process was thorough, examining everything from trigger weight to barrel specifications. Sarah's rifle passed all technical requirements, but the inspection revealed a potential issue that would become significant later. During the detailed examination, one of the technical officials noted that Sarah's rifle's action showed signs of unusual wear patterns. The rifle had been extensively customized and had seen heavy use during Sarah's intensive training period. While the weapon was still well within technical specifications, the official recommended monitoring it closely during competition to ensure continued reliability. This recommendation was noted in Sarah's technical file but was not considered a significant concern at the time. Sarah's first competition event was the Individual Precision Rifle Championship, scheduled for the second day of competition. The format required 40 shots at 600 meters, with scoring based on precision rather than speed. This played directly to Sarah's strengths, allowing her to use her analytical approach and technical preparation to maximum advantage. The conditions on competition day were challenging but predictable, with steady winds and good visibility. Her performance in the precision event was remarkable. Sarah's first 10 shots established her as a serious contender, with scores that placed her among the leaders after the first string. Her ability to read and adapt to wind conditions was clearly superior to most of the field, and her equipment was performing flawlessly. By the halfway point, she had moved into second place behind Yuki, setting up a direct competition between the two different shooting philosophies they represented. The final 10 shots of the precision event were shot under increasing pressure, as it became clear that the competition for the gold medal was essentially between Sarah and Yuki. The other competitors remained mathematically in contention, but the gap had grown large enough that only a significant mistake by one of the leaders would change the outcome. Sarah's ability to perform under pressure, developed through years of training with Dr. Williams, allowed her to maintain her technique even as the stakes escalated. Sarah's final shot was a nearly perfect center hit that secured her first World Championship gold medal by a margin of just 2 points over Yuki. The victory was significant not just for Sarah personally but for American shooting sports, as it represented the first individual world championship won by an American woman in over a decade. More importantly, it validated her analytical approach to shooting and established her as a legitimate contender for future international competitions, including the Olympics. The medal ceremony was an emotional experience that brought together all the elements of Sarah's journey from ranch shooting to international competition. Her parents had traveled from Montana to watch her compete, and Elena was present as part of the coaching staff. The moment when Sarah stood on the podium while her national anthem played represented the culmination of years of dedication and the validation of her belief that technical excellence could overcome traditional advantages. The celebration was brief, as Sarah had additional events remaining in the championship schedule. The individual medal also qualified her for the mixed team event, where she would be partnered with Jake Morrison, a veteran competitor who specialized in rapid-fire disciplines. The mixed team format combined precision and speed elements, requiring partners to complement each other's strengths while maintaining consistent communication under pressure. Jake had initially been skeptical of being partnered with a competitor he viewed as inexperienced in team formats, but Sarah's gold medal performance had earned his respect. Their practice sessions revealed that Sarah's analytical approach actually enhanced team performance, as she could quickly identify optimal strategies for different stages of the competition. Jake's experience in rapid-fire events complemented Sarah's precision skills, creating a partnership that was more effective than either shooter could achieve individually. The mixed team competition was held on the final day of championships, with 8 teams competing in a format that required both individual excellence and precise coordination. The American team entered the competition as medal contenders based on Sarah's individual performance and Jake's reputation in team events. The competition format was complex, requiring teams to excel in multiple shooting disciplines while maintaining communication and mutual support throughout. Sarah and Jake's performance in the team event was nearly flawless. Their complementary skills allowed them to excel in different phases of the competition while maintaining consistency across all disciplines. Sarah's precision shooting gave them early leads in technical stages, while Jake's rapid-fire expertise secured crucial points in speed phases. Most importantly, their analytical approach to strategy allowed them to adapt their tactics based on other teams' performance in real time. The team gold medal was decided in the final shooting string, with 3 teams separated by fewer than 5 points entering the last stage. Sarah's ability to perform under extreme pressure proved decisive, as she shot a near-perfect string while competitors from other teams struggled with the mental pressure. The victory gave Sarah 2 gold medals from her first World Championships and established her as one of the world's premier competitive shooters. The immediate aftermath of the championships was overwhelming. Media requests poured in from around the world, equipment sponsors competed for endorsement deals, and shooting organizations invited Sarah to participate in exhibitions and clinics. More importantly for her future competitive career, she received formal notification that she was being considered for the Olympic team selection process. The Olympic opportunity represented both the ultimate goal of her competitive career and a completely new level of pressure and expectation. Olympic shooting competition operated under different rules and formats than World Championships, requiring specialized preparation and equipment modifications. Sarah would need to make significant changes to her training program and competitive schedule to optimize her preparation for Olympic trials. Elena and the national team coaching staff developed a comprehensive plan for Sarah's Olympic preparation that would span the next 2 years. The plan included exposure to Olympic format competitions, specialized equipment development, and intensive mental preparation for the unique pressures of Olympic competition. Sarah would also need to maintain her academic studies while dramatically increasing the intensity of her athletic preparation. The technical requirements of Olympic competition would require modifications to Sarah's equipment and shooting technique. Olympic events used different targets, distances, and scoring systems than World Championships, requiring months of specialized preparation to adapt her approach. More significantly, the pressure of Olympic competition was legendary among athletes, with mental preparation being as crucial as technical skill. Sarah's success at the World Championships had transformed her status within the shooting community and created new opportunities and challenges. She was no longer the unknown competitor who had surprised everyone with her analytical approach. Future competitors would study her methods and develop counter-strategies. The element of surprise that had contributed to her early success would no longer be available. The path to Olympic competition would require Sarah to evolve her approach while maintaining the fundamental principles that had made her successful. The stakes were higher, the competition was more intense, and the margin for error was smaller than anything she had previously experienced. Her ability to adapt and improve would determine whether her World Championship success was the beginning of a dominant career or the peak of her competitive achievement. The 2 years following Sarah's World Championship victory were a relentless cycle of training, competition, and preparation for the Olympic trials. Her daily routine had evolved into something that would have been unimaginable during her early days of ranch shooting. She woke at 5 a.m. for physical conditioning, spent 6 hours on various shooting disciplines, dedicated time to mental preparation and visualization, and still maintained her engineering coursework through an accelerated program designed for Olympic hopefuls. The Olympic preparation process revealed the enormous difference between even World Championship level competition and the ultimate stage of athletic achievement. Every aspect of Sarah's preparation was scrutinized and optimized by a team of specialists that included coaches, sports scientists, equipment technicians, nutritionists, and psychologists. The level of support was extraordinary, but it came with pressure and expectations that required constant mental adjustment. Sarah's equipment had undergone continuous evolution during this period. Her original custom rifle had been modified repeatedly to optimize performance for Olympic format competition. The changes were subtle but significant, involving adjustments to trigger mechanics, scope mounting systems, and barrel specifications that could only be detected by expert examination. Each modification required extensive testing and adjustment periods to ensure that improvements in one area didn't create problems elsewhere. The most significant equipment development was the creation of a completely new rifle system designed specifically for Olympic competition. This rifle incorporated advanced materials and manufacturing techniques that pushed the boundaries of what was technically legal under international regulations. The development process had taken 18 months and involved collaboration between Sarah, master gunsmiths, and aerospace engineers who brought expertise from other precision industries. Sarah's relationship with this new rifle was almost mystical. She understood every component intimately and could detect performance variations that were invisible to other shooters and even some equipment technicians. Her engineering background allowed her to communicate with the technical team in ways that optimized the development process. The rifle wasn't just a tool, it was an extension of her competitive capabilities that had been precisely calibrated to her physical characteristics and shooting style. The mental preparation for Olympic competition required techniques and strategies far beyond what Sarah had used for World Championships. Working with an expanded team of sports psychologists, she developed visualization protocols that allowed her to mentally rehearse every aspect of Olympic competition, from the opening ceremonies to medal presentations. The psychological preparation was designed to ensure that no aspect of the Olympic experience would be unfamiliar or distracting when it occurred. Dr. Williams had connected Sarah with former Olympic athletes from other sports who could share insights about the unique pressures of Olympic competition. These conversations revealed that Olympic performance often depended more on mental preparation and pressure management than on technical ability. Many technically superior athletes had failed at Olympics because they were overwhelmed by elements they hadn't anticipated or prepared for adequately. Sarah's competitive schedule during this period was carefully managed to provide optimal preparation for Olympic trials without risking burnout or injury. She competed in selected international events that used Olympic formats and conditions, gradually building experience with the specific demands of Olympic-style competition. Each competition was treated as a learning opportunity, with detailed analysis of performance data and mental state management under varying pressure conditions. One of the most valuable experiences was competing in the World Cup circuit, which used Olympic formats and attracted many of the same competitors who would be present at the Olympics. These competitions allowed Sarah to test her equipment and preparation methods against the same athletes she would face in Olympic competition. More importantly, they provided opportunities to experience the media attention and spectator presence that characterized major international sporting events. Sarah's performance during this preparation period was consistently excellent but not dominant. She won several World Cup events and set personal records in Olympic format competition, but she also experienced defeats that provided valuable learning opportunities. Elena emphasized that this balance was ideal for Olympic preparation, as unchallenged success could lead to overconfidence while constant defeat could damage confidence unnecessarily. The technical aspects of Sarah's preparation had become increasingly sophisticated. Her team had developed customized ammunition that was optimized for the specific atmospheric conditions expected at the Olympic venue. They had created detailed atmospheric models that allowed them to predict equipment performance under various weather scenarios. Most remarkably, they had developed backup plans for virtually every equipment or environmental problem that could occur during competition. The mental preparation had evolved to include specific strategies for handling equipment malfunctions or unexpected problems during competition. Sarah practiced shooting with deliberately compromised equipment to develop confidence in her ability to adapt under pressure. These exercises were designed to ensure that equipment problems would challenge her but not paralyze her competitive performance. The Olympic trials were held 6 months before the Games at a facility designed to replicate Olympic conditions as closely as possible. The competition format was identical to what would be used at the Olympics, and the pressure was intensified by the knowledge that only the top 3 finishers would earn spots on the Olympic team. For Sarah, this represented the culmination of years of preparation and the gateway to achieving her ultimate competitive goal. Her performance during the trials was marked by the consistency that had characterized her shooting throughout her competitive career. Sarah's analytical approach allowed her to adapt quickly to the specific conditions and maintain her technique even under the enormous pressure of team selection. Her scores were consistently in the medal range, and she qualified for the Olympic team with a performance that established her as a serious medal contender. The months between trials and the Olympics were dedicated to final preparation and optimization. Sarah's training became even more specific, focusing exclusively on Olympic format competition and the exact conditions expected at the Olympic venue. Her equipment underwent final modifications and extensive testing to ensure peak performance. Most importantly, her mental preparation was refined to address the specific challenges and opportunities of Olympic competition. The Olympic venue was located in a coastal city where weather conditions were notoriously variable and challenging. Sarah spent weeks studying historical weather data and developing strategies for adapting to the range of conditions she might encounter. Her preparation included practice sessions that deliberately replicated various weather scenarios, ensuring that she could maintain performance regardless of environmental challenges. Sarah's equipment preparation for the Olympics was obsessive in its attention to detail. Her primary rifle was accompanied by a complete backup system that duplicated every component. She traveled with multiple ammunition lots that had been tested under various conditions. Every piece of equipment had been examined, tested, and certified by technical specialists. Nothing was left to chance in terms of equipment preparation. The psychological preparation for Olympics included specific strategies for handling the unique pressures of Olympic competition. Sarah worked with her team to develop responses to various scenarios, from equipment problems to poor early performance to overwhelming success. The goal was to ensure that she could maintain her analytical approach and technical excellence regardless of what occurred during competition. The final weeks before Olympic competition were spent in isolation training camps where Sarah could focus exclusively on competition preparation without distractions. These camps replicated Olympic conditions as closely as possible and included mock competitions that simulated the pressure and protocols of actual Olympic events. Sarah's performance during these final preparations suggested that she was ready for the ultimate test of her competitive career. The Olympic experience began with the opening ceremonies and Athlete Village, which represented a completely new environment for Sarah despite her extensive international competition experience. The scale and intensity of Olympic competition was unlike anything she had encountered. Thousands of athletes from hundreds of countries, constant media attention, and the knowledge that billions of people around the world would be watching created an atmosphere of excitement and pressure that required constant mental management. Sarah's event was scheduled for the middle week of Olympic competition, which allowed her time to acclimate to the Olympic environment while maintaining focus on her preparation. She used this time to finalize her equipment preparation and adapt to the specific conditions of the Olympic shooting venue. Her practice sessions were consistently excellent, suggesting that her years of preparation had successfully prepared her for this moment. The day before her competition, Sarah participated in the final equipment inspection and range practice session. This was when she encountered the first indication of the problem that would define her Olympic experience. During routine inspection of her primary rifle, technical officials noted irregularities in the action mechanism that required detailed examination. The same wear patterns that had been noted during World Championships had progressed to the point where they were affecting the rifle's mechanical operation. The technical inspection revealed that Sarah's rifle, despite being well within legal specifications, was experiencing mechanical stress that could potentially lead to malfunction during competition. The rifle had performed flawlessly during practice sessions, but the stress analysis suggested that the intensive use during Olympic preparation had pushed the mechanism beyond optimal operating parameters. Officials recommended that Sarah consider using her backup rifle for competition. The decision about which rifle to use for Olympic competition created an unexpected crisis in Sarah's preparation. Her primary rifle was the weapon she knew intimately and had used for her best competitive performances. The backup rifle was technically identical but lacked the thousands of hours of use that had created the perfect harmony between Sarah and her primary weapon. Using the backup rifle would require mental and technical adjustments that she had hoped to avoid during Olympic competition. Sarah spent the evening before competition testing both rifles extensively and consulting with her technical team about the optimal choice. Elena emphasized that confidence in equipment was more important than marginal technical differences, while the technical specialists recommended the backup rifle based purely on reliability concerns. The decision would ultimately rest with Sarah, who would have to live with the consequences regardless of which choice she made. The morning of competition arrived with Sarah having decided to compete with her primary rifle despite the technical concerns. Her reasoning was that the marginal risk of mechanical failure was outweighed by her confidence in the weapon's performance characteristics. She had trained for years to handle unexpected problems during competition, and she believed that her familiarity with the rifle's behavior would allow her to detect and respond to any issues that developed. The competition format for Olympic shooting was elimination style, beginning with qualification rounds that determined advancement to medal rounds. Sarah's performance would need to be excellent from the very first shot, as poor early scores could eliminate Olympic medal possibilities before the final rounds even began. The pressure was enormous, but Sarah's years of preparation had been designed specifically for this moment. The Olympic shooting venue buzzed with tension as competitors made their final preparations for the women's precision rifle event. Sarah moved through her pre-competition routine with the methodical precision that had characterized her approach throughout her career. Every movement was deliberate, every breath controlled, as she prepared for the competition that would define her athletic legacy. The morning air was crisp and still, creating ideal conditions for precision shooting. Her warm-up shots confirmed what Sarah had hoped: her rifle was performing flawlessly despite the technical concerns raised during inspection. Each shot landed exactly where her calculations predicted, validating her decision to compete with her primary weapon. The familiar weight and balance of the rifle felt like an extension of her body, and the scope alignment was perfect. Elena observed from the coaching area, noting Sarah's calm demeanor and consistent technique. The qualification round began with 40 competitors shooting for 8 spots in the medal round. Sarah's position on the firing line placed her between Yuki Tanaka and Maria Santos, a Brazilian shooter who had won silver at the previous Olympics. The proximity to such accomplished competitors was simultaneously inspiring and intimidating, but Sarah had learned to use such situations to elevate her own performance rather than be overwhelmed by them. Sarah's first 10 shots were technically perfect, placing her in second position behind Yuki after the opening string. Her analytical approach to reading wind conditions was proving advantageous in the variable coastal breezes that were challenging other competitors. The crowd's reaction to each shot was subdued but intense, with thousands of spectators following every detail of the competition through electronic scoreboards and television coverage. The second string of shots maintained Sarah's position in the qualification standings, but she could sense subtle changes in her rifle's behavior that concerned her. The trigger felt slightly different, and there was a barely perceptible variation in the action cycling that suggested the mechanical stress identified during inspection was beginning to affect performance. She made mental notes of these observations while maintaining focus on her shooting technique. By the third string, Sarah had moved into first place as other competitors struggled with the challenging conditions. Her ability to adapt to environmental changes was proving superior to even the most experienced international competitors. The engineering principles she had applied to understanding ballistics were providing crucial advantages in analyzing and compensating for the complex wind patterns affecting the Olympic venue. The qualification round concluded with Sarah securing the top position and advancing to the medal round with scores that set new Olympic qualifying records. Her performance had been technically flawless and mentally controlled, validating years of preparation and establishing her as the favorite for Olympic gold. The media attention was immediate and intense, with broadcasters from around the world requesting interviews and commentary. The break between qualification and medal rounds provided time for final equipment checks and mental preparation. This was when the mechanical issue that had been developing throughout qualification became impossible to ignore. During routine inspection of her rifle, Sarah's technical team discovered that the action mechanism had developed a significant problem that would likely cause a malfunction during the medal round. The specific issue was a hairline crack in the bolt mechanism that had been caused by the accumulated stress of intensive training and competition. The crack was not visible during normal inspection but showed clearly under magnification. More importantly, the technical analysis indicated that the crack would likely expand under the stress of competition shooting, potentially causing a complete mechanical failure at the worst possible moment. The discovery created an immediate crisis that threatened to destroy Sarah's Olympic medal chances. Her backup rifle was available and technically ready for competition, but she had fired fewer than 100 rounds through it in recent months. The backup rifle's scope was zeroed differently, the trigger felt different, and the overall balance was subtly unlike what Sarah's muscle memory expected. Switching rifles for the medal round would require rapid adaptation under maximum pressure. Elena and the technical team unanimously recommended switching to the backup rifle, arguing that the risk of mechanical failure with the primary rifle was too great to accept. The medical round format was elimination style, meaning that any malfunction could immediately end Sarah's medal chances. From a purely tactical perspective, the backup rifle offered better reliability even if it required some adaptation in technique. Sarah's decision-making process was complicated by her emotional attachment to her primary rifle and her confidence in her ability to detect and compensate for mechanical problems. She had trained extensively with deliberately compromised equipment and believed that her analytical approach would allow her to work around the mechanical issue. The primary rifle had carried her to every major victory of her career, and abandoning it felt like betraying a trusted partner. The final decision was made just 15 minutes before the medal round began. Sarah chose to compete with her primary rifle, accepting the mechanical risk in exchange for maintaining the equipment familiarity that had been central to her success. Elena disagreed with the decision but supported Sarah's choice, knowing that confidence was more important than marginal technical advantages. The medal round format was designed for television drama, with competitors shooting individually while their scores were displayed in real time. Sarah was scheduled to shoot fifth in the 8-competitor field, which allowed her to observe other shooters' performances while maintaining enough time to execute her own strategy. The pressure in the venue was enormous, with thousands of spectators and millions of television viewers following every shot. The first 4 competitors delivered performances that were consistent with their qualification scores, setting a high standard for medal consideration. Sarah approached the firing line with complete focus on her technical execution, blocking out the crowd noise and media attention that had the potential to disrupt her concentration. Her pre-shot routine was identical to what she had used throughout her career, providing familiar anchors in an unfamiliar environment. Sarah's first shot in the medal round was perfect, confirming that her rifle was still performing despite the mechanical issue. The crowd's reaction was immediate and enthusiastic, as her shot was scored and displayed on the electronic boards surrounding the venue. More importantly for Sarah, the rifle's behavior felt normal, suggesting that the mechanical problem might not affect her performance in the crucial medal round. The second shot was equally precise, but Sarah detected the subtle signs that indicated her rifle's mechanism was under stress. The bolt action felt slightly rough, and the trigger required marginally more pressure than normal. These were small changes that would be undetectable to most shooters, but Sarah's intimate familiarity with her equipment made them obvious warning signs of developing problems. By the 4th shot, Sarah had moved into the lead despite her equipment concerns. Her ability to maintain technical precision while managing mechanical problems was demonstrating the adaptability that had characterized her shooting throughout her career. The crowd was responding to her performance with increasing enthusiasm, creating an atmosphere of excitement that enhanced rather than distracted from her focus. The decisive moment came during her 6th shot, when the mechanical failure that her technical team had predicted finally occurred. As Sarah squeezed the trigger, the bolt mechanism jammed completely, preventing the rifle from cycling properly. The malfunction was immediately obvious to everyone in the venue, as the characteristic sound of the shot was followed by a mechanical grinding noise that indicated complete mechanical failure. Competition officials immediately called for a technical inspection to determine whether the malfunction was caused by equipment failure or operator error. The inspection process was thorough and public, conducted in front of thousands of spectators and television cameras. After several minutes of examination, officials determined that the rifle had suffered a mechanical failure that made it unsafe and illegal for continued competition use. The announcement that Sarah's rifle was being confiscated created a moment of stunned silence in the venue. Spectators and competitors alike understood that this represented a catastrophic equipment failure that would normally end any chance of medal competition. Sarah stood motionless at the firing line, processing the implications of losing her primary rifle with 2 shots remaining in her medal round performance. Competition protocols required that Sarah be provided with a backup rifle to complete her remaining shots, but the weapon officials brought was standard military issue rather than the precision competition rifle she had expected. The replacement rifle was heavier than what Sarah was accustomed to, the scope was different, and the trigger mechanism was completely unlike anything she had used in competitive shooting. The few minutes available for Sarah to familiarize herself with the replacement rifle were insufficient for proper preparation. She was allowed 3 practice shots to adjust to the new weapon, but this was far less than what would normally be required to adapt to completely different equipment. Most competitors would have simply accepted elimination at this point, viewing the equipment change as an insurmountable challenge under such pressure. Sarah's approach to this crisis demonstrated the mental training and adaptability that had been central to her development as a competitor. Instead of viewing the equipment change as a disaster, she analyzed it as a technical problem that could be solved through rapid adaptation and modified technique. Her engineering background provided frameworks for quickly understanding the new rifle's characteristics and compensating for the differences. The first shot with the replacement rifle confirmed Sarah's worst fears about the equipment change. The shot was technically sound but landed significantly lower than her point of aim, indicating that the scope 0 was different from what she had expected. The miss dropped her from 1st place to 4th, apparently eliminating her chances for any Olympic medal with just 1 shot remaining. Competition officials granted Sarah additional time to adjust the scope, but the modification process was limited by regulations about equipment changes during active competition. Sarah was forced to estimate the scope adjustment needed based on her single shot with the rifle, essentially performing ballistics calculations under maximum pressure with incomplete data. The mental challenge was enormous, requiring her to apply complex technical knowledge while maintaining emotional control. Sarah's final shot carried the weight of her entire competitive career. Years of preparation, training, and sacrifice had led to this single moment where everything would be determined by her ability to adapt to unprecedented circumstances. The pressure was unlike anything she had experienced, but her mental preparation had been designed specifically for situations where normal performance standards were insufficient. The shot sequence that followed became legendary in competitive shooting circles. Sarah's pre-shot routine was extended as she processed the technical adjustments needed for the unfamiliar rifle. Her breathing pattern was modified to account for the weapon's different balance. Her grip and stance were subtly altered to optimize control of the heavier rifle. Every aspect of her technique was dynamically adapted based on the single previous shot's performance. The crowd fell silent as Sarah settled into her final shooting position. Television commentators stopped speaking, creating an atmosphere of suspended anticipation that extended far beyond the venue itself. Millions of viewers around the world were witnessing a moment that would define not just Sarah's career but the limits of athletic adaptation under pressure. Sarah's final shot was released after what seemed like an eternal pause but was actually exactly 83 seconds from the moment she had been handed the replacement rifle. The shot felt different from anything she had experienced with her familiar equipment, but her analytical assessment suggested it was technically sound. The electronic scoring system processed the shot's location with agonizing slowness before displaying the result. The shot was scored as a perfect 10, the maximum possible score in Olympic competition. More remarkably, the shot was located in the exact center of the target, indicating precision that exceeded what most competitors achieved with their optimal equipment. The crowd's reaction was instantaneous and overwhelming, with spectators rising in unanimous recognition of what they had witnessed. The perfect final shot moved Sarah from fourth place to first, earning her the Olympic gold medal in the most dramatic fashion possible. Her total score, achieved despite the catastrophic equipment failure, set a new Olympic record that stood as testament to both her technical skill and her ability to perform under impossible circumstances. The victory was immediately recognized as one of the greatest individual athletic achievements in Olympic history. The aftermath of Sarah's victory was unlike anything she had experienced. Media attention was global and intense, with her story being told and retold across every form of communication. The technical aspects of her adaptation to the replacement rifle were analyzed by experts in multiple fields, from sports science to engineering to psychology. Her performance became a case study in human adaptability and mental preparation. More importantly for the sport of competitive shooting, Sarah's victory demonstrated that analytical approaches to technical challenges could overcome traditional advantages in experience and equipment familiarity. Her success inspired a generation of young shooters who applied similar systematic methods to their own development. The combination of technical knowledge and mental preparation that had characterized Sarah's career became the standard for elite competitive shooting. The Olympic gold medal represented the culmination of Sarah's journey from ranch defender to international champion, but it also marked the beginning of a new phase in her relationship with competitive shooting. Her victory had proven that human adaptability and technical knowledge could overcome almost any challenge, establishing principles that extended far beyond sports into any field requiring precision performance under pressure. Years later, when Sarah reflected on that 83-second sequence that changed her life, she recognized it as the perfect convergence of preparation, opportunity, and mental resilience. Every aspect of her development, from her early analytical approach to ranch shooting through years of intensive Olympic preparation, had contributed to her ability to perform when everything went wrong. The moment when her rifle was confiscated had not ended her dreams but revealed the true extent of what she was capable of achieving.